Black Book, a tale of all things evil. Kolduns, Bányiks, Susetko, Gopniks and many more. Can it follow in the footsteps of the widely loved Witcher series, or will it be forgotten? Join us in this review, based on a close to 30-hour playthrough, and let's find out together. Your very first experience will be of a prologue presented via a set of high-quality pictures imitating oil paintings. Don't get too used to these though, as further down the line similar quality visuals will only be present during dialogues in the form of portraits. Through the vast majority of your time spent with Black Book, you'll be looking at, well, to say it politely, minimalistic environments and characters. Such a pity really. Getting to see all these great drawings, but fighting janky looking enemies is such a letdown, and makes you wish they just completely ignored the idea of going 3D with the game, and instead delivered a 2D experience using all this amazing art at their disposal. While we're already talking presentation, we might as well touch on how the music and the sound work compensates for the void left after the visuals. Background music is a mix of electronic music and folk instruments, resulting in a surprisingly catchy blend. Truly a noteworthy work from Mikhail Shavko. And if that wasn't enough to satiate your hunger for folk music, if you search the game thoroughly, you'll regularly come across live choral music, which was performed by the student choir of the Perm Regional College of Arts and Culture. Just as much as a gem as the music, honestly. Unfortunately, the voiceover is once again hit and miss. While the major roles are well voiced, there are so many supporting characters with low quality voiceovers, it's just sad. I also couldn't help but feel let down by the voiceovers in general not carrying a heavy Slavic accent, or that Vasilisa, being voiced by the same actress as Jinx from League of Legends and Legends of Runeterra, never started screaming about rules being broken.
Rules are made to be broken, like buildings, or people.
But hey, latter will obviously not be held as a fault. There's also a recurring issue of the voiceovers and the on-screen subtitles not matching up. While this is mostly just an annoyance, there is a certain instance where the two directly oppose each other. Well, good luck taking the 50-50 solving that puzzle.
It's a fork that you have no memory of. Looks like the turn on the right is used more often than the one to the left.
Gameplay itself follows the story of Vasilisa, a young practitioner of magic, attempting to break the seals of a magical tome of spells created by the devil himself, hoping that by doing so, she'll be able to bring her husband back from the dead before it's too late. This is where the role-playing aspect of Black Book enters the picture. Your journey will be presented in the form of chapters broken down into days, where each day you'll have a specific objective to reach and one or more side quests as well. Presentation of these days will be familiar if you've played any other single-player card battlers as of late. BB opts to deliver in a similar map-esque layout as, for example, Slay the Spire or Griftlands, on which you'll traverse nodes where different interactions will be waiting for you. These can be battles, opportunities to shop, or just dialogue-based interactions where you can learn more about the world and the mythology surrounding you. If anything, latter is undoubtedly the main strength of BB. The amount of Slavic mythology presented to the player is frankly insane, but in a good way. I had so much fun reading about these creatures, these habits related to them, and the occasional short stories. I even caught myself rambling about Bányas and Bányiks to the girlfriend while we were out walking the dog. A fair warning though, none of this is voiced, so just be ready to read. A lot. But if you're prepared for this, all this reading actually comes in handy as well. Often you'll be faced with riddles which call upon solutions you can find among these lore snippets, or other times you could skip entire fights just by knowing the right answer to give during discussions. Other times you'll have no other option but to fight, and this is where the card slinging comes into the picture. Fights in BB depict you throwing spells at your enemies, and to do so, you'll use your deck of cards, the pages from your book. Every spell will be assembled from a limited number of orders, even fewer keys, and can also be supported by gestures, all of which you'll draw from your book based on what deck you've assembled previously. I have to be honest here, however, this part definitely leaves room for wanting. There's a lot of similarity to what you have likely already experienced in other card games. A set number of draws per turn, finite resources, synergies, buffing, cards going into a void. But I swear to God, even having completed the game, I'm still slightly puzzled on how the discard pile and reshuffling the deck works. Keeping your deck thin will most of the time allow you to draw into what you want consistently, but every now and then, this unpleasant feeling of my deck being completely reshuffled every turn kept crawling back, seeing how I didn't draw into specific cards I wanted for turn after turn. Don't get me wrong, I do understand this is a reasonable thing to happen with card games, but it shouldn't be the case, I don't think, if your deck contains less than 10 cards. Occasionally, cards would also be worded in ways that make it nigh on impossible to understand what they're meant to do, but I'm sure experimenting would answer those questions. Personally, I just couldn't be bothered to do so, as I had a deck that could beat almost every single fight in the game, with just a few exceptions where I would have to switch to my B deck. It would have been great to have deck slots of some sort that made this transition easier, and maybe if that was the case, I also would have been more incentivized to experiment with other decks, but as this currently is lacking, I didn't exactly feel the urge to keep adding and removing cards one by one on a regular basis. Despite the minor annoyances though, I absolutely enjoyed the card slinging aspect of BB. It's a simple system, but delivers a satisfying experience. You'll also come across puzzle battles occasionally, where you have a set card pool and a set amount of turns to beat the fight. From what I saw online, the community doesn't necessarily seem to be overly delighted with these bits, but personally I didn't mind them. I will say though, there's definitely one that is way out of place and tasks you with solving a puzzle involving cards and mechanics that you haven't even remotely came across yet at that point in the game. Other than that one, however, just a bit of trial and error will allow you to pass all of them easily. Worst case scenario, after just 3 failed attempts, you can always skip the puzzles and move on with your life. To break up the monotony of massive dialogue pieces and the card battles, BB also introduces bite-sized sections borrowed from point-and-click titles, where you would wander around a small area collecting herbs or interacting with items, the occasional, usually non-mandatory puzzle section, and the opportunity to play a Slavic card game called Durak. The point-and-click sections are short enough not to be annoying, the puzzles are usually fairly easy to solve, and while I still don't know what the optimal way to play Durak is, I found way more success in it than failure. All in all, absolutely welcome little snippets, all of these. If I completely disregard my disapproval for the choice of visual direction, I think most of my complaints would be filed against the quality department. Good news is, we're not talking about crashes, stuttering or game-breaking bugs, although I must say I do think a certain fight was bugged, and cards that are supposed to remove buffs and debuffs just rarely if ever worked. But rather, we're looking at minor things, the lack of polish in the form of missing quality of life additions. For example, just looking at this screen Would you be able to quickly tell how you're supposed to send your demons out on jobs? No? Interesting. Probably has something to do with ignoring the basic rule of graphic design, or to highlight the important things only. If instead of highlighting this meaningless text and this useless border, or even this semi-meaningful status effect, they highlighted the actual interactive part, I'm sure you'd have had a better chance of finding it. Just see how different this all looks after having hid non-relevant items by darkening them and bringing forward what's important by highlighting? Staying on this actual same page or picture as you wish, another welcome addition would be not having to send out demons day by day. You could argue this is on purpose, as even the story states multiple times, demons would annoy the hell out of their masters and pestering them took a lot of effort. But fact is, at the end of the day, this just translates into unenjoyable busywork. That's not the reason why I would want to boot up a game. There's also the case of not having easy access to frequently used buttons. For example, having to open an unnecessary menu to get to your encyclopedia instead of just having a direct access button on screen at all times, or how the entries in there can't be sorted. Last but not least, how in order to re-attempt puzzle battles, you have to reload to the start and go through all the dialogue again and again. I want to stress, individually, these are all minor annoyances. But believe me, shit like this adds up and slowly but surely alienates your player base from your game, and the fix to these would be so ridiculously effortless it's not even funny. So, whatever the hell is my verdict on Black Book, you would wonder? Well, fact is, it's certainly not a deep enough card battler for those looking for something similar to the previously mentioned Griftlands or even Tainted Grail Conquest. I also don't think it would satiate those looking for another shot at the Witcher series. However, it does deliver an intriguing enough story. For me, the Slavic setting carried the entire game on its back big time, and I enjoyed reading about the mythology and folklore right to the very end. Not sure whether or not you're familiar with this concept, but growing up, I used to love reading these build your own story type of books. Instead of picking up these books and reading them cover to cover, these would be filled by entries, let's say half a page long, marked with numbers, and each ending with a decision to be made. Based on your decision, you would proceed to a specific section, possibly hundreds of pages away, go through this same process again and again, and that's how your story would be built. Probably, this is the best way to express how I felt playing Black Book. If you feel that's something you'd be interested in as well, and you wouldn't be annoyed by all the reading to be done, knock yourself out. And just like that, we've reached the end of this review, and the time has arrived to say our loving goodbyes. We hope you found what you came looking for. If you did, we'd be very grateful if you pleased the machine gods by liking our video. If you'd like to come along for our next deep dive, don't hesitate to subscribe. If you have any game you'd like for us to check out, let us know in the comment section. Don't leave your infants in the bathhouse, lest the banyik take them, and we'll see you again soon.